Part 1, 1,400-word story. The sun had already begun to sink behind the tall walls of the estate when the maid arrived with her daughter, just as she did almost every day. The mansion belonged to Sheikh Karim, a powerful tycoon whose name carried weight across the region. His businesses were vast, his decisions sharp, and his reputation firm. For many people, stepping inside his home felt like stepping into another world. One made of quiet hallways, perfectly polished floors, and an air that demanded respect. Amina, the maid, moved quickly and quietly as she always did. She had worked in this house for years, long enough to understand every rule without being reminded. She never spoke unless spoken to, she never lingered, and she made sure her presence never disturbed the calm atmosphere of the mansion. But today, like many afternoons before, her young daughter Layla walked beside her, holding a small stack of schoolbooks close to her chest. Layla was a small, shy girl with a quiet nature. She rarely looked people in the eye and spoke even less. She had learned early on that this house was not a place for noise or excitement. So whenever she came along with her mother, she would sit in the same corner of the staff room, do her homework, and wait patiently until it was time to go home. The mansion that seemed intimidating to everyone else felt like a strange kind of second home to her. Not because she belonged there, but because she had spent so many hours watching her mother work while she tried to focus on her books. She noticed everything: the soft clicking of the large clock in the hallway, the way the carpets felt almost too soft under her shoes, and how even the wind outside seemed quieter once it passed through the tall gate. On this particular day, Amina guided her daughter to the usual corner and whispered gently, "Sit here, my dear. I'll finish quickly today." Layla nodded, opened her books, and tried to ignore the nervous flutter in her stomach. She never liked being noticed inside this house. The place was too elegant, too grand, too far from the simple world she and her mother lived in. She felt like she had to shrink herself whenever she came here. Meanwhile, in another part of the mansion, Sheikh Karim sat in his study surrounded by thick folders and silent screens displaying market numbers. His days were long and full of decisions. People feared disappointing him, and even small choices held great weight when they came from him. Despite the comfort and luxury around him, his life rarely felt peaceful. It was full of goals, meetings, and responsibilities. He had almost forgotten that the maid's daughter sometimes accompanied her. Their worlds were so far apart that he never imagined they would ever cross in any meaningful way. But that afternoon, something changed. A sudden message arrived for Amina from another worker in the house, asking her to clean a section near the main hallway instead of the service area, where she usually stayed. She did not question the instructions. She simply obeyed as she always did. But as she walked, she realized she needed to keep Layla close. There was no place to leave her in that part of the mansion. "Come with me," she whispered to her daughter. Layla hesitated. "Mama, I'll stay here. I don't want to get in anyone's way." But Amina shook her head. "No, not here. Come." And so, the girl picked up her books, held them tightly against her chest, and followed her mother through the long hallway. She tried to walk quietly, placing each step carefully on the soft carpet. They reached the area near the large wooden doors of the study. Amina began dusting a nearby shelf, and she quietly guided Layla to sit on a cushioned bench by the wall. "Stay here. Don't move unless I come back," she said softly. Layla nodded. She opened her notebook and began solving a math problem, hoping no one would notice her. But fate had a different plan that day. The door to the study opened, and Sheikh Karim stepped out, holding a cup of coffee and looking deeply absorbed in thought. He stopped when he noticed the small girl sitting quietly on the bench. For a moment, both of them froze. Layla lowered her gaze immediately, unsure if she had done something wrong. Her heart began to race. She had never spoken to the Sheikh before. In fact, she had only seen him from a distance. Tall, dignified, always serious. "Whose child is this?" His voice carried a firm tone, not harsh but commanding. Amina hurried toward him, nearly dropping her cloth. "Sir, I'm so sorry. This is my daughter. She's only here because I couldn't leave her at home today. She won't disturb anything, I promise." The sheik looked at the small girl again. She sat perfectly still, clutching her pencil with both hands. She looked almost like she wanted to disappear. He raised an eyebrow slightly. "Why is she sitting outside my study?" Amina bowed her head. "Forgive me, sir. I had to clean this area." There was no one to look after her. There was a long pause. Amina kept her head lowered, afraid he might be displeased. Then something unexpected happened. Instead of brushing past them or instructing her to take the child away, the sheik crouched down slightly so he could look at the girl's face. It was something no one in the household had ever imagined seeing. "What are you studying?" he asked. The girl hesitated, her eyes flickering to her mother. When her mother gave a small nod, she answered softly, "Math, sir." Her voice was barely above a whisper. He studied her for a moment. "Do you like school?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, sir." "What do you want to be when you grow up?" he asked, almost as if he didn't expect an answer. Layla took a small breath. Her fingers tightened around her pencil. I want to build things that help people," she said in a tiny but honest voice. The sheik was taken aback. It wasn't the kind of answer he expected from a small child of a household maid. "What kind of things?" he asked, curiosity creeping into his tone. She swallowed nervously. "Maybe a place where children can learn, or something that makes life easier for people who don't have much." A moment of silence followed. A strange warmth flickered in the sheik's eyes, but it disappeared almost as quickly as it came. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his wallet, and took out a single $1 note. He handed it to her. "Here," he said simply. The gesture was so unexpected that both Amina and her daughter froze. Layla stared at the note, unsure whether she should take it. "It's for you," the sheik added. Her small hand reached out slowly, and she took it. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. To him, it was nothing. A small gesture, an absent-minded act of encouragement for a child who looked like she could use a little kindness. But to Layla, that $1 felt like something far more important. She didn't understand why, but it held a strange weight, as if it was the beginning of something she couldn't yet name. Amina thanked him repeatedly with a trembling voice, her relief visible. "You may finish your work," he said calmly. Then he turned and walked away, returning to his study. When the door closed, Amina knelt beside her daughter. "Put that away carefully," she whispered. "You must not lose it." Layla nodded, still staring at it. She folded the note gently and slipped it between the pages of her notebook. Her heart was beating fast. Not from fear, but from a feeling she had never felt before. Something warm, something like hope. She didn't know what she would do with that single $1. She didn't know how something so small could matter. But deep inside, she felt like it meant something. Something important. And although the sheik had already forgotten the moment, walking back to his busy life, that tiny note in the hands of a shy little girl was about to set off a chain of events none of them could have imagined. Part 2, 1,400-word story. The next morning began like any other, with Layla waking up before the sun rose. The small room she shared with her mother was quiet except for the soft sound of the nearby street coming to life. Vendors were setting up their stalls, bicycles passed by, and the smell of fresh bread traveled through the narrow lanes. But this morning felt different for Layla. She reached under her pillow and pulled out her notebook. Inside it was the single $1 note the sheik had given her. She opened the notebook gently and stared at it. It looked simple, yet it filled her chest with a strange, warm excitement. She had never been given money by someone outside her family before, especially not someone as powerful as the sheik. She didn't know why, but she couldn't stop thinking about what he asked her. The question about her dreams. No one had ever asked her that before. People usually assumed she was just another maid's child who would grow up and work in the same circle. But that $1 felt like a small light in her hands. Her mother noticed her staring at it while preparing breakfast. "You're still thinking about yesterday?" she asked with a gentle smile. Layla nodded, not taking her eyes off the note. "Mama, do you think he meant something by giving it to me?" Amina paused. She didn't want to give her daughter too much hope, knowing how life usually worked for families like theirs. But she also didn't want to dim the spark in her daughter's eyes. "Sometimes small things have big meaning," she said softly. "But it's up to us to make that meaning." Those words stayed with Layla as she walked to school that morning. She kept the note safe inside her notebook, pressing it flat between the pages. At school, her teacher announced something that immediately caught her attention. "Students, next week we will hold our small annual charity challenge," the teacher said to the class. "Each student must bring something small, anything you can afford, and try to increase its value in a creative or helpful way. It's not about profit. It's about learning how ideas can grow." Most students groaned or whispered about what they would bring. Some planned to bring candies to resell. Others wanted to make drawings or crafts. But Layla sat quietly, her fingers brushing against the edge of her notebook where the $1 note rested. For the first time, she felt like she had something meaningful to contribute. During recess, her friend Nor approached her. "Do you know what you're going to do for the challenge?" she asked. Layla hesitated. I might use something I got yesterday." Nor nodded, waiting for more. But just thinking about the note made Layla feel protective over it. She didn't want to explain the whole story, not yet. When school ended, Layla hurried home, her mind racing with possibilities. The challenge was simple. Take something small and turn it into something better. But she wanted her project to matter. She wanted it to grow, to become something worth showing. That afternoon, she sat with her mother at their tiny kitchen table. "Mama," she said quietly, "can I use the $1 for my project?" Amina looked up from cutting vegetables. She thought about it carefully. She knew how much the note meant to her daughter. Losing it or spending it on something meaningless would break her heart. "What do you want to use it for?" she asked. Layla took a deep breath. "I want to buy something I can make better. Something I can sell for the charity challenge. And maybe I can use whatever I earn to help someone else, too." Amina listened closely. There was a seriousness in her daughter's voice that she wasn't used to hearing. She felt proud, but also nervous. Life had taught her to be cautious with hope. "Only if you promise to think carefully," she said. Layla nodded firmly. After finishing chores, Amina took Layla to the small market near their home. The evening crowd was alive with activity. Children ran between stalls, vendors shouted out prices, and colorful fabric fluttered in the warm breeze. Layla's eyes scanned the stalls, looking for something small but full of possibility. She stopped at a man selling balloons. Bright red, blue, yellow, and pink ones floated above him, tied together with thin strings. Each balloon cost exactly $1. "Are you sure?" her mother asked quietly. Layla nodded. "This is the one." The vendor smiled warmly when she handed him the money. "For a school project, he asked. Layla nodded again. "Then pick your favorite color," he said. She selected a bright blue balloon. It shimmered slightly in the fading sunlight. She held it carefully the whole way home. The next morning, she woke up early again. She had an idea. With small pieces of colored paper she saved from old notebooks, she created tiny decorative shapes, stars, flowers, and simple patterns. She glued them around the balloon string and added a small paper tag she wrote herself. "Handmade for a special occasion." The tag read. When she looked at the finished balloon, she felt proud. It wasn't perfect, but it had character. It was unique. It looked like it had a story. Her mother smiled at her work. "It's beautiful," she said. "You made something simple look like something people would want." On Saturday, they walked together to the busy community park. Layla held her decorated balloon tightly. Her heart beat fast with nervous excitement. She found a small space near the entrance, where families often stopped with children. A mother walking with her little boy noticed the balloon. She smiled. "Is this for sale?" Layla nodded shyly. "Yes." The woman examined it. "It's lovely. How much?" Layla didn't know what to say. She had never sold anything before. "Maybe $2?" she said softly. The woman laughed gently. "For all the work you put in, I should give you more." She handed her $5. Layla's eyes widened. $5. Felt like a miracle. "Keep it up, dear. Your creativity will take you places, the woman said before walking away. Layla stood speechless for a moment, her heart full. She had doubled, then more than tripled the simple gift she started with. Her mother watched from a distance, smiling with pride. She could see something unlocking in her daughter, a confidence she had never seen before. That night, Layla placed the $5 inside her notebook, right where the $1 note had once been. She stared at it, overwhelmed. The next day, she bought inexpensive colored paper and ribbons from a nearby shop. With her mother's help, she created more small decorations, bookmarks, tiny greeting cards, and simple handmade charms. The weekend after that, she set up another tiny spot at the park. This time, she had a small table borrowed from a neighbor. A few children from the neighborhood gathered, watching her crafts curiously. People began buying her things not just for the challenge, but because they liked the effort she put into them. Some even asked her to make personalized items. Her little business grew quietly, without anyone in the mansion knowing. The neighborhood kids admired her creativity. Adults encouraged her. She felt something new unfolding in her life, something she had never dared to imagine. At school, her teacher praised her project when she turned it in. "You didn't just make something," the teacher said gently. "You created a seed, and you helped it grow." Those words stayed with her. Every evening after school, she continued making small crafts, saving every bit she earned. She never used the money for snacks or toys. Instead, she set it aside carefully, always remembering why she started. Though the sheik had already forgotten about the small moment by his study door, that moment had transformed into something beautiful in a quiet neighborhood. A little girl learning for the first time that she wasn't powerless, that she could create something meaningful. And day by day, dollar by dollar, her world began to shift in ways she never expected. Part 3, 1,400-word story. Weeks passed quietly, and life continued at a steady pace in the neighborhood. Every morning, Layla went to school with her books neatly tucked under her arm, and every afternoon she returned home with new ideas growing in her mind. The little craft projects she started for the charity challenge had become something she looked forward to each day. What had begun with one simple balloon was now turning into a small routine that brought her joy and purpose. Her mother noticed the change. Layla seemed more confident. She smiled more often. She talked about colors, shapes, and new designs she wanted to try. And even though Amina was exhausted from long days working in the Sheikh's mansion, she always made time to sit beside her daughter and help her cut paper, tie ribbons, or fold tiny cards. On weekends, Layla continued visiting the park with her small table. People remembered her from previous visits. Some even asked, "Do you have new designs today?" Children loved her colorful paper charms. Adults appreciated the care she put into each item. Slowly, word spread among the locals that a talented little girl was selling handmade crafts near the park entrance. But even as her tiny business grew, she remained humble. She saved every bit she earned in a small tin box her mother had once used to store sewing needles. Each time she opened it, she gently placed the money inside and closed the lid with quiet pride. One evening, while her mother cooked dinner, Layla opened her notebook. Between the pages, the original $1 note still lay neatly folded. She stared at it for a few moments. She no longer saw it as simple money. It had become a symbol of courage she never knew she had, of dreams she wasn't afraid to chase anymore. She wanted to do more. She wanted her work to mean something beyond her small table at the park. At school, her teacher noticed her growing confidence. One day, after class, the teacher approached her. "Layla, would you like to join a youth creativity event next month?" she asked. Layla blinked in surprise. "Me? Yes," her teacher said warmly. "You have talent, and more importantly, you have commitment. This event encourages children to share their ideas, crafts, and small projects. I think you should take part." Layla felt her heart thump in her chest. "Is it big?" "It's small compared to city fairs," the teacher replied with a smile. "But big enough for people to notice your work." Layla hesitated. She had never been on a stage before. She had never even spoken in front of more than her class. But then she remembered how her hands shook the first day she sold her balloon, and how proud she felt afterward. "I want to try," she whispered. Her teacher smiled. "Good. I'll help you prepare." When she told her mother that evening, Amina wrapped her in a gentle hug. "I am proud of you," she said softly. "You are showing the world what is inside you." During the following days, Layla worked harder than ever. Her schoolwork came first, but afterward she spent hours creating small craft items. More decorative balloons, colorful bookmarks, tiny handmade envelopes, and a few decorated jars she had learned to make using old glass containers. Each piece was made with care, and she placed them all in a small cardboard box she kept beside her bed. Meanwhile, in the Sheikh's mansion, nothing seemed different. The household ran with its usual quiet order. Amina continued her duties silently, never mentioning the growing world her daughter was building outside. It wasn't that she wanted to hide it. She simply knew the Sheikh had no reason to be interested in the life of a maid's child. Still, sometimes she would glance at the large doors of the study and remember the moment he handed her daughter that $1. She wondered if he would ever know what it had sparked. One afternoon, while cleaning the upper hallway, Amina overheard a conversation between two of the mansion's staff members. "They say the Sheikh will be the chief guest at the youth creativity event next month," one of them said. Amina almost dropped the cloth she was holding. "Are you sure?" she asked quietly. "Yes," the staff member replied. "It seems the organizers invited him because he supports several youth education programs." Amina's heart fluttered nervously. If the Sheikh was attending the event, that meant he might see her daughter's work. She didn't know whether to feel excited or worried. The moment she got home, she told Layla. The girl froze for a moment. "He will be there?" "Yes," her mother replied. "But don't let that make you afraid. Just do what you have prepared." Layla nodded, but she couldn't stop thinking about it that night. The idea of standing in a hall filled with people scared her. The idea of the Sheikh seeing her work made her even more nervous. In her memory, he was tall, serious, and powerful, someone who belonged to a world far above hers. But she reminded herself, he had been the first person to ask her about her dreams. And even if he didn't mean anything special by it, that moment had changed her life. As the event drew closer, Layla practiced how she would arrange her crafts on a table. She practiced what she might say if someone asked about her work. Her teacher guided her gently, never pushing too hard, always encouraging her to speak from her heart. One evening, as she laid out her crafts on the floor, she whispered to her mother, "What if no one likes them?" Her mother smiled softly. "My dear, people will see the effort you put into them. But even if someone doesn't like them, that doesn't take away from the work you've done. You worked hard. You believed in yourself. That is already something many people never learn." Layla nodded slowly. Deep inside, she wanted to believe that everything would go well. The day of the event finally arrived. The community hall was decorated with colorful banners and small lights. Tables were arranged in rows, each for a different child. Some tables displayed paintings. Others had clay models or small inventions. Parents and teachers filled the hall, talking excitedly. Layla and her mother arrived early. Her hands trembled slightly as she arranged her crafts neatly on the table she was assigned. She placed her original notebook beside them with the $1 note inside it, though she did not plan to show it. It just felt right to keep it close. Children and adults slowly visited her table. They admired her work, asked questions, and smiled warmly at her quiet explanations. Some even bought a few pieces. "You did this all by yourself?" a woman asked. "With my mother's help," Layla said softly. "You're talented," the woman replied. Weeks passed quietly, and life continued at a steady pace in the neighborhood. Every morning, Layla went to school with her books neatly tucked under her arm, and every afternoon she returned home with new ideas growing in her mind. The little craft projects she started for the charity challenge had become something she looked forward to each day. What had begun with one simple balloon was now turning into a small routine that brought her joy and purpose. Her mother noticed the change. Layla seemed more confident. She smiled more often. She talked about colors, shapes, and new designs she wanted to try. And even though Amina was exhausted from long days working in the Sheikh's mansion, she always made time to sit beside her daughter and help her cut paper, tie ribbons, or fold tiny cards. On weekends, Layla continued visiting the park with her small table. People remembered her from previous visits. Some even asked, "Do you have new designs today?" Children loved her colorful paper charms. Adults appreciated the care she put into each item. Slowly, word spread among the locals that a talented little girl was selling handmade crafts near the park entrance. But even as her tiny business grew, she remained humble. She saved every bit she earned in a small tin box her mother had once used to store sewing needles. Each time she opened it, she gently placed the money inside and closed the lid with quiet pride. One evening, while her mother cooked dinner, Layla opened her notebook. Between the pages, the original $1 note still lay neatly folded. She stared at it for a few moments. She no longer saw it as simple money. It had become a symbol of courage she never knew she had, of dreams she wasn't afraid to chase anymore. She wanted to do more. She wanted her work to mean something beyond her small table at the park. At school, her teacher noticed her growing confidence. One day, after class, the teacher approached her. "Layla, would you like to join a youth creativity event next month?" she asked. Layla blinked in surprise. "Me? Yes," her teacher said warmly. "You have talent, and more importantly, you have commitment. This event encourages children to share their ideas, crafts, and small projects. I think you should take part." Layla felt her heart thump in her chest. "Is it big?" "It's small compared to city fairs," the teacher replied with a smile. "But big enough for people to notice your work." Layla hesitated. She had never been on a stage before. She had never even spoken in front of more than her class. But then she remembered how her hands shook the first day she sold her balloon, and how proud she felt afterward. "I want to try," she whispered. Her teacher smiled. "Good. I'll help you prepare." When she told her mother that evening, Amina wrapped her in a gentle hug. "I am proud of you," she said softly. "You are showing the world what is inside you." During the following days, Layla worked harder than ever. Her schoolwork came first, but afterward she spent hours creating small craft items. More decorative balloons, colorful bookmarks, tiny handmade envelopes, and a few decorated jars she had learned to make using old glass containers. Each piece was made with care, and she placed them all in a small cardboard box she kept beside her bed. Meanwhile, in the Sheikh's mansion, nothing seemed different. The household ran with its usual quiet order. Amina continued her duties silently, never mentioning the growing world her daughter was building outside. It wasn't that she wanted to hide it. She simply knew the Sheikh had no reason to be interested in the life of a maid's child. Still, sometimes she would glance at the large doors of the study and remember the moment he handed her daughter that $1. She wondered if he would ever know what it had sparked. One afternoon, while cleaning the upper hallway, Amina overheard a conversation between two of the mansion's staff members. "They say the Sheikh will be the chief guest at the youth creativity event next month," one of them said. Amina almost dropped the cloth she was holding. "Are you sure?" she asked quietly. "Yes," the staff member replied. "It seems the organizers invited him because he supports several youth education programs." Amina's heart fluttered nervously. If the Sheikh was attending the event, that meant he might see her daughter's work. She didn't know whether to feel excited or worried. The moment she got home, she told Layla. The girl froze for a moment. "He will be there?" "Yes," her mother replied. "But don't let that make you afraid. Just do what you have prepared." Layla nodded, but she couldn't stop thinking about it that night. The idea of standing in a hall filled with people scared her. The idea of the Sheikh seeing her work made her even more nervous. In her memory, he was tall, serious, and powerful, someone who belonged to a world far above hers. But she reminded herself, he had been the first person to ask her about her dreams. And even if he didn't mean anything special by it, that moment had changed her life. As the event drew closer, Layla practiced how she would arrange her crafts on a table. She practiced what she might say if someone asked about her work. Her teacher guided her gently, never pushing too hard, always encouraging her to speak from her heart. One evening, as she laid out her crafts on the floor, she whispered to her mother, "What if no one likes them?" Her mother smiled softly. "My dear, people will see the effort you put into them. But even if someone doesn't like them, that doesn't take away from the work you've done. You worked hard. You believed in yourself. That is already something many people never learn." Layla nodded slowly. Deep inside, she wanted to believe that everything would go well. The day of the event finally arrived. The community hall was decorated with colorful banners and small lights. Tables were arranged in rows, each for a different child. Some tables displayed paintings. Others had clay models or small inventions. Parents and teachers filled the hall, talking excitedly. Layla and her mother arrived early. Her hands trembled slightly as she arranged her crafts neatly on the table she was assigned. She placed her original notebook beside them with the $1 note inside it, though she did not plan to show it. It just felt right to keep it close. Children and adults slowly visited her table. They admired her work, asked questions, and smiled warmly at her quiet explanations. Some even bought a few pieces. "You did this all by yourself?" a woman asked. "With my mother's help," Layla said softly. "You're talented," the woman replied. Layla felt her cheeks warm. Compliments were still something she struggled to accept, but they filled her with encouragement. Just when she began to relax, a hush fell across the hall. People started turning toward the entrance. The Sheikh had arrived. He walked in with the calm confidence he always carried. Several organizers greeted him respectfully. Children stared at him with wide eyes. Parents whispered to each other. Even teachers straightened up nervously. Layla's breath caught in her throat. He moved slowly from table to table, observing each child's work. He nodded politely, asked a few questions, and offered short compliments. As he moved closer to her row, Layla's heart raced faster. She could hear her pulse in her ears. She could feel her palms growing sweaty. Her mother placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "You're doing fine," she whispered. The Sheikh paused in front of the table next to hers. The child there had made small wooden toys. The Sheikh asked a few questions, nodded approvingly, and moved on. Then he stopped in front of Layla's table. For a moment, he looked at her without recognition. She kept her eyes lowered respectfully. Then his gaze shifted to her crafts, colorful paper designs, decorated jars, and handmade charms arranged neatly. He picked up one of the bookmarks gently. "Did you make all these?" he asked. Layla took a small breath. "Yes, sir," she said softly. His eyebrows lifted slightly. "These are well made. How long have you been doing this?" "Since the school charity challenge," she replied. "And what inspired you to start?" he asked. Layla hesitated. She looked up at him for the first time. His expression was calm, not harsh or intimidating like she remembered. Still, her voice trembled when she answered. "A small gift I received," she said quietly. The Sheikh tilted his head slightly, as though trying to understand. "A gift?" "Yes, sir," she replied. $1. Something shifted in his expression. A faint recognition flickered in his eyes. But before he could speak, one of the organizers approached, calling him toward the stage for the opening speech. The Sheikh gave one last look at her crafts before turning away. Layla let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Her mother smiled. "You did well," she whispered. But Layla's heart was still beating fast. She wasn't sure what the Sheikh had understood, or if he had understood anything at all. All she knew was that he had seen her work, even if only for a moment. And that moment felt bigger than anything she had imagined. She didn't know that the real surprise was still ahead. Something she could never have predicted. Part 4, 1,400-word story. The day of the youth creativity event had been long and filled with excitement. Layla had managed to talk to visitors, sell a few of her handmade crafts, and feel proud of herself for the first time in a very long while. Yet, the real sense of awe and nervousness had been saved for last. The moment she saw the Sheikh walking into the hall. Though she had barely spoken to him since that day months ago, his presence reminded her of the one small dollar he had given her, and the thought made her heart beat faster. As the event carried on, she continued to stand behind her table, answering questions from other children and adults. But her attention kept drifting to the entrance. Every time someone opened the door, she found herself holding her breath, wondering if he would come back to her table. Her mother noticed her shifting eyes and smiled softly, squeezing her hand. "You've done so well already," she whispered. "No matter what happens, I am proud of you." Layla nodded, though her nerves were still on edge. She was proud, yes, but she also longed for some sort of acknowledgement from the man who had unknowingly started this journey. And then it happened. The hall grew quiet as the sheik moved from one table to the next. Children held their breath, and parents straightened in anticipation. The man who rarely smiled, rarely complimented anyone outside his circle, paused in front of Layla's table once more. His eyes swept over her crafts, the brightly colored bookmarks, the tiny jars with delicate decorations, the handmade cards. He picked up a small charm carefully and examined it closely. "You made this?" he asked, his voice steady but curious. Layla swallowed. "Yes, sir," she whispered, keeping her eyes down. "Everything here. You did all this?" he asked, lifting his gaze slightly. "Yes, sir. With some help from my mother?" she said softly, hoping he wouldn't think she was bragging. The sheik's expression shifted. For the first time that day, a genuine flicker of interest passed across his face. He looked closely at each item, as if trying to measure something beyond the physical craft. The thought, effort, and dedication hidden behind each piece. It was a rare moment for the people around him to see, and a few whispered quietly among themselves. "I see," he said finally. "And how did this all start?" Layla hesitated, unsure how much she should share. She wanted to tell the truth, but the words felt heavy. Still, she knew the story needed to be told. It started with $1, she said, her voice trembling slightly. The sheik raised an eyebrow. $1? Yes, sir, she continued. Someone gave me $1, and I thought I could make something of it. I made one balloon and then more things, and then it grew. He paused, his gaze sharpening, and she realized with a jolt that he was thinking of that day months ago. The day he had handed her that single note at the mansion. You're the girl, he said slowly, almost to himself. Layla's eyes widened. Could it really be him? Did he remember? Yes, sir, she whispered. That $1. It meant a lot to me. The sheik's posture softened. For the first time in the hall, his serious expression seemed to melt slightly. He had always been a man of action, of big decisions and large sums of money. But this small, shy girl, sitting quietly yet producing something remarkable from a single $1, had caught him off guard. A murmur ran through the crowd. People were starting to realize that the story of her small beginnings might be more meaningful than the crafts themselves. A teacher nearby leaned toward another parent and whispered, "That's incredible. One small act led to all this." The sheik looked down at her, and for a moment, the hall seemed to shrink around them. No other tables, no other children, no other crafts. Only the small, determined girl and the effort she had put into each item. "Tell me," he said finally, his tone gentle now, "how did you do it?" Layla swallowed and took a small breath. I started with one balloon. I decorated it with small things I had. I sold it to a lady in the park. Then I saved what I earned and made more things. I kept making new designs and tried to make each one better than the last. I wanted to help people, even just a little, and to show that even small things can grow. The sheik nodded slowly, absorbing her words. "You've done well," he said, almost in a whisper. "You didn't just use $1, you made it matter." The hall was quiet now, everyone watching, sensing the rare interaction between a man of wealth and authority and a humble, hard-working child who had followed her dreams. Layla felt a flush of pride and relief. Her hands, which had trembled all day, now rested calmly on the table. The voice that had once been so small and quiet now felt stronger, as if the recognition from this man, of all people, had given her permission to believe in herself more than ever before. The sheik turned slightly, looking around the hall and then back at her. Would you explain this journey to the organizers? Layla blinked. Me? She asked softly, still in disbelief. Yes, he said, nodding. You should tell them how something small can create something big. You've proven it. A teacher stepped forward, a gentle smile on her face. Of course, I can help you, but the words are yours, she said. With her mother at her side, Layla took a deep breath. She began to explain her journey, the dollar, the first balloon, her small efforts, and how she had reinvested every bit of money to create more crafts. She spoke simply, honestly, and from her heart. The audience listened, captivated not just by her story, but by the sense of determination and hope she carried. Each word reminded them that success could start in the smallest ways. When she finished, the hall erupted into soft applause. Some people wiped tears from their eyes, others smiled broadly. But the most significant reaction came from the sheik. He stood quietly, his face unreadable at first, then slowly, he allowed a small, genuine smile to appear. For a moment, Layla felt as if time had stopped. The man who had seemed so distant and powerful was now simply someone moved by what she had achieved. The organizers invited the children to gather near the center of the hall. The sheik, who rarely engaged personally in such events, approached Layla and asked her to stand beside him. The crowd quieted again. I want everyone here to understand, he began, his voice firm yet calm, that greatness doesn't always start with large sums or impressive positions. Sometimes it begins with a single step, a small decision, or even a single dollar. He looked down at Layla. This young lady shows us that determination, creativity, and hard work can turn the smallest of beginnings into something truly remarkable. She has inspired us all today. Layla could hardly believe what she was hearing. The same man who had barely given her a second glance months ago was now publicly praising her. Her mother held her hand tightly, pride radiating from her. The sheik reached into his pocket and pulled out another envelope. He handed it to her carefully. This is to help you continue your work, he said. Consider it an investment, not a gift. I want to see what you can create next. Layla opened it slowly. Inside were notes that could fund her small projects for months. She felt a lump in her throat. Her eyes brimmed with tears, but she blinked them away, feeling joy unlike anything she had ever known. Thank you, sir, she said softly. Her voice was steady now, filled with genuine gratitude. The sheik nodded, and for the first time, the hall saw a side of him that few ever did. A man moved by the quiet perseverance of a child, willing to acknowledge it openly. After the event, reporters and attendees spoke about the young girl who had turned a single dollar into an inspiring story. Children wanted to learn how to start small and dream big. Adults discussed how acts of encouragement, even minor ones, could spark enormous change. Meanwhile, Layla and her mother walked home slowly, the envelope safe in Layla's hands. They didn't talk much, words were unnecessary. The walk itself felt like a celebration. That night, as Layla placed the envelope and the original dollar note in her notebook, she reflected on everything that had happened. From the shy girl in the corner of the mansion's hallway to this moment of recognition, the journey felt surreal. She understood something crucial. Small acts of kindness, small opportunities, and small beginnings could grow into something powerful. And sometimes, the right person noticing you at the right moment could change everything. Though she did not yet know what the future held, Layla felt a quiet certainty in her heart. The story of the single dollar was no longer just about money. It was about belief, courage, and the chain reaction that even a small gesture could create. Part 5, 1,400-word story. The morning after the youth creativity event, Layla woke up with a sense of calm excitement. Everything from the previous day, the applause, the sheik's words, the envelope of money, felt like a dream she could barely believe was real. Yet, there it all was, resting on her desk beside the notebook that held the original dollar note, the tiny spark that had started it all. She sat quietly for a few moments, holding the envelope in her hands, and felt a wave of gratitude she didn't quite have words for. Her mother entered the room with a small breakfast tray. "Morning, my dear," she said softly. "How do you feel?" "Happy," Layla said simply, smiling, "but also nervous." "Why nervous?" her mother asked, sitting beside her. "Because now I have a chance to do more. And I want to do it right," she said. Her voice was thoughtful, careful. "I want to make something that really helps people, like I dreamed." Amina smiled. She understood. Her daughter had always been quiet, always humble. But beneath that shyness lay a heart full of ambition and care. "Then start small," she advised gently. "Remember, every big thing starts with a small step." For the next few weeks, Layla worked harder than ever. She spent hours each day planning new designs, thinking about how to improve her crafts, and finding ways to involve other children in her neighborhood. The envelope from the sheikh allowed her to buy better materials and even a few tools to help create more intricate decorations and crafts. She felt a sense of responsibility now, not just to herself but to the people who had encouraged her, and to the idea that small efforts could create change. At school, she began sharing her ideas with classmates. Some joined her in making small items to sell at community events. They worked together, laughing and helping one another. Layla learned to teach others, explaining the small techniques she had developed. Her confidence grew, and with it, the sense that she could actually make a difference. Her mother continued to support her, quietly guiding her whenever needed. Amina often reminded Layla that perseverance mattered more than recognition. And yet, recognition had come, and it had changed something inside the girl. She knew that $1, one small act, could ignite possibilities far beyond imagination. Meanwhile, in the Sheikh's mansion, life continued at its usual pace. Sheikh Karim had returned to his business matters, but the memory of the small girl's story lingered in his mind. Rarely did he pause to think about people outside his circle, and yet, Layla's determination had left a lasting impression. He had seen how a tiny spark of encouragement could grow into something meaningful, and it reminded him of the influence even small gestures could carry. Weeks later, the sheikh decided to take action. He called Amina and asked her to bring Layla to the mansion one afternoon. Amina was nervous but also proud. She had not told Layla that the sheikh had shown any special interest in her work after the event, and she wasn't sure how the girl would react. When they arrived at the mansion, Layla's heart pounded. The large gates, the polished floors, and the towering walls felt imposing, as always, but she held her head high. She had learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to continue despite it. The sheikh was waiting in a quiet room filled with light and plants. He gestured for her to sit across from him. "You've been busy," he said gently. "I've heard about your continued work, and I wanted to speak with you personally." Layla nodded, her fingers clasped tightly in her lap. "Yes, sir," she said softly. I've been trying to do my best." The sheikh studied her for a moment. "You have done more than that. You've shown initiative, creativity, and determination. I want to help you go further." Layla blinked, unsure what he meant. "I want to provide funding and resources so that you can expand your projects," he continued. "I want you to create a space where other children can learn, experiment, and grow their skills, just as you have." Her eyes widened. "Me? Create a space?" "Yes," he said, smiling slightly. "You've shown that even small beginnings can lead to great things. I want to give you the opportunity to do more." For the first time in her life, Layla felt completely understood and supported. She could hardly believe it. This was the same man who had given her a $1 months ago, the same man whose glance she had barely noticed in the mansion's hallway. And now, he was offering her the tools to make her dreams bigger. With her mother's hand on her shoulder, Layla nodded. I will do my best, sir," she said, her voice steady. Over the following weeks, they began planning. The sheikh provided funding, a small workspace, and access to materials and mentors who could teach children basic crafting, design, and business skills. Layla worked tirelessly to organize the program. She wanted it to be a place where every child, no matter their background, could explore their creativity and build confidence. Word of her project spread quickly. Children from the neighborhood came eagerly, curious to learn and participate. Parents supported them, inspired by Layla's story and the possibilities it represented. Teachers from her school volunteered to help guide workshops and provide encouragement. The small initiative began to grow into a larger program, reaching more children than she had ever imagined. Despite the increasing responsibilities, Layla remained humble. She remembered that $1, that first small act that had started everything. It grounded her, reminding her that every achievement began with something simple. She made sure every child understood that small efforts, repeated consistently, could lead to significant outcomes. The Sheikh occasionally visited the program, observing quietly. He didn't interfere, but he offered guidance when needed. Seeing the children inspired, creating, and learning under Layla's leadership brought a rare sense of satisfaction he rarely felt in the world of business and wealth. The impact of a small, thoughtful gesture had come full circle, and he appreciated it more than he expected. Months passed and the program flourished. Children developed confidence, learned practical skills, and discovered joy in creativity. Layla grew into a natural leader, encouraging, patient, and innovative. She continued creating her own crafts, introducing new ideas, and mentoring younger children. Her small balloon had turned into a chain of events that inspired a community. One evening, after a busy day of teaching and crafting, Layla sat quietly in the workspace, flipping through her notebook. She came across the original $1 note, carefully folded in its place. She touched it gently, smiling. "It all started with you," she whispered. "And now look where we are." Her mother, standing nearby, nodded. "And this is only the beginning," she said softly. "You've shown what can happen when someone believes in you, and when you believe in yourself." Layla knew she would never forget the day she received that single dollar. It was more than money. It was a reminder that even the smallest gestures could create big changes, that kindness and belief had power, and that determination could transform the simplest opportunity into something extraordinary. As the sun set over the neighborhood, the workspace buzzed with activity. Children chatting, crafting, and learning. Layla watched them, feeling proud and humble at the same time. She realized that her journey was not just about recognition or success, but about helping others find their own paths, just as she had been helped. The Sheikh, observing quietly from a distance, noticed the transformation as well. The girl who had once been shy and hesitant now inspired a room full of children. He had given her a single dollar months ago, thinking little of it. Now, that simple gesture had blossomed into a movement of creativity, courage, and opportunity. And so, the story that began with $1, a shy little girl, and a moment of unexpected generosity ended up changing more lives than anyone could have imagined. Layla had taken the smallest spark and turned it into a flame that would continue to light the way for many others. She knew, deep inside, that her journey had only just begun.